The PlayStation 6 could be the last console Sony ever makes. Now, just let that sink in for a moment. That's not a wild rumor from a forgotten internet forum, and it's not some far-fetched clickbait fantasy. That is the terrifying, yet increasingly plausible reality we are all facing. A reality built on Sony's own deliberate actions and the startling public comments from its highest-ranking executives. The console wars, that decades-long, epic battle for living room supremacy that has defined entire generations of gaming, might finally be over. And the most shocking part of this entire story? It seems that Sony Interactive Entertainment, the titan of the industry, the champion of the exclusive, is the one waving the white flag. What in the world is going on? Today, we are not just looking at leaks for the next piece of PlayStation hardware. We are going much, much deeper. We're dissecting a fundamental, earth-shattering shift in Sony's entire philosophy. It's a change so profound, it could completely redefine what it means to be a PlayStation gamer for the rest of time. In this deep dive, we are going to unpack everything you need to know. We'll examine the specific executive comments that sent crippling shockwaves through the global gaming industry. We will reveal exactly why the PlayStation 6 is almost certainly safe, already on its unstoppable path to a 2027 or 2028 release, but also why the PlayStation 7 might be nothing more than a distant, unattainable fantasy. And most importantly, we are going to uncover the stunning, almost unbelievable truth behind Sony's decision to bring its biggest, most beloved hits, like the phenomenal Helldivers 2, to its longtime arch-rival, the Xbox, a move that we now know was orchestrated and pushed for by Sony itself. This is not speculation anymore. This is happening right now, and the future of PlayStation hangs precariously in the balance. The first tremors of this earthquake were felt when Sadahiko Hayakawa, the senior vice president of Sony, made comments that seemed to go against everything the company has stood for over the last 30 years. He indicated that the studio intends to focus less on hardware. Less on hardware. For Sony, that's like saying a fish plans to focus less on water. This is a company whose entire identity is forged in the fires of hardware innovation. The Walkman, which changed how we listen to music. The Discman. The Trinitron televisions. And, of course, the PlayStation itself. A piece of hardware that stormed the market in the 1990s and dethroned the established kings, Nintendo and Sega. Hardware isn't just something Sony does. It's in their corporate DNA. Let's not forget, this is the company that won an entire format war with the PlayStation 3, single-handedly making Blu-ray the dominant physical media format over HD DVD, a victory achieved through sheer hardware muscle. So for a top executive to publicly signal a pivot away from this core identity is nothing short of monumental. It suggests a profound identity crisis at the very top of the company. Are they still the masterful engineers of cutting-edge gaming machines? Or are they transforming before our very eyes into something else entirely? A content-first media behemoth, more like a Disney or a Netflix, where the box you play on is secondary to the game itself. This single strategic shift has thrown everything we thought we knew about the future of gaming into question. What makes this whole situation so deeply confusing, so utterly paradoxical, is that this philosophical pivot is happening at a time of unprecedented success for PlayStation's hardware. The PlayStation 5, released in 2020, has been a runaway triumph. It was the most sought-after piece of technology on the planet for years, a cultural phenomenon that drove a global supply chain crisis and created a multi-billion-dollar resale market fueled by scalpers. Why? Because the demand was absolutely insatiable. People were desperate to get their hands on Sony's machine. It has consistently outsold its competition and continues to break sales records around the world. They even felt confident enough in the brand's power to release the PlayStation 5 Pro, a mid-generation upgrade that further solidifies its position as the premium console experience. So we have to ask the question, why would a company at the absolute zenith of its hardware power, a company that is winning the so-called console war by every traditional metric, suddenly and dramatically consider changing its winning formula? It feels counterintuitive, almost illogical. It suggests that the executives at Sony are looking at a different set of data, a different version of the future that we, the public, are not yet privy to. And it's a future that might not have room for the traditional console model. This is where the PlayStation 6 enters the picture, and its story has become infinitely more interesting. For years, the PS6 has been the subject of leaks, insider reports, and excited speculation. We've heard whispers of its incredible power, its advanced architecture, and a potential release window somewhere between 2027 and 2028. And let's be clear, the PlayStation 6 is almost certainly happening. A modern gaming console is like an aircraft carrier. Its development cycle is immensely long, incredibly complex, and fantastically expensive. We're talking about billions of dollars in research and development, supply chain logistics, and manufacturing deals that are planned a decade in advance. The train for the PlayStation 6 has not only left the station, it is thundering down the tracks at full speed. It is far too late in the game for Sony to pull the plug, even with this new shift in strategy. But this new context changes everything about what the PlayStation 6 represents. It's no longer just the next iterative step in a long line of successful consoles. It's now potentially something far more significant, far more historic. The PlayStation 6 could be the last of its kind, Sony's final, glorious hurrah in the world of dedicated gaming hardware. A magnum opus of console engineering, designed to be the ultimate expression of their 30-year legacy before the company sails into a new, hardware-agnostic future. The hype for this machine is no longer just about frame rates and looting times. It's about owning a potential piece of gaming history. This is a truly pivotal moment. And if you find this shift in the gaming landscape as fascinating and as critical as we do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small click for you, but it genuinely helps us to continue digging deeper into these complex stories that shape our hobby. The seeds of this revolution were planted quietly, years ago. The first phase of Sony's grand plan wasn't a loud declaration, it was a subtle expansion. The first PlayStation exclusives started appearing on PC. First, it was Horizon Zero Dawn, then God of War, The Last of Us Part 1, Ghost of Tsushima. At the time, many of us saw this as a logical, if slightly surprising, business move. It was a way to get a second bite of the apple, to sell these celebrated but aging masterpieces to a whole new audience of PC gamers long after their initial sales window on console had closed. It made sense. But now, with the benefit of hindsight, we can see it for what it truly was, a calculated test. It was the first phase of a much larger strategic operation. Sony was dipping its toes into the multi-platform waters, testing the temperature, and what they discovered was that the water was incredibly warm and absolutely overflowing with cash. The PC ports were wildly successful, adding hundreds of millions of dollars to their bottom line and proving that there was a massive, untapped market for their games outside the walled garden of the PlayStation ecosystem. But a few PC ports are one thing. What came next was the unthinkable, the bombshell, the single event that broke the internet and signaled that the old rules of the console wars were officially dead. Helldivers 2, a smash hit in-house Sony exclusive, was announced for the Xbox Series X and S with a release date of August 26th. This is the gaming equivalent of Coca-Cola releasing a special edition beverage that will only be sold in Pepsi-branded vending machines. It violates every law of nature in the console business. For decades, the one sacred, unbreakable rule was that you do not put your system-selling exclusive software on your direct competitor's hardware. It's the entire reason consoles exist. But the most staggering part of this reveal, the detail that serves as the smoking gun, came from the developer, Arrowhead Game Studios. They revealed that it wasn't their idea to push for an Xbox port to expand their player base. It was Sony. Sony, the publisher, the gatekeeper of the PlayStation kingdom, was the one actively pushing for Helldivers 2 to be released on Xbox. This is no longer a test. This is a deliberate, calculated, top-down strategy to begin dismantling the very ecosystem they spent billions of dollars and decades of marketing to build. The question is no longer if PlayStation games are coming to Xbox, but when and how many. And the reason for this tectonic shift is simple. Sony has been watching its rival. They have been studying the Microsoft playbook. Microsoft and its head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, absorbed years of harsh criticism when they began their strategy of breaking down console exclusivity. They started putting their games on PC day and date. They launched Game Pass, a subscription service that valued access over ownership, a model many industry veterans initially mocked as unsustainable. And they even began publishing their own games, like the best-selling Forza Horizon 5 on the PlayStation 5. While console purists and many in the media cried foul, Microsoft was quietly building a new kind of empire, one born out of the necessity of their position behind Sony, an empire based on software and services that could reach every player on every screen. And Sony saw the results. They saw the billions of dollars in revenue that Microsoft was generating by not limiting its sales to just the Xbox owner base. The business logic is brutally simple and undeniably compelling. Why would you want to sell your new game to the 70 million people who own a PlayStation, when you could sell it to the combined 120 million people who own a PlayStation and an Xbox, not to mention the hundreds of millions more on PC? Suddenly, the walls of exclusivity look less like a fortress protecting your kingdom and more like a cage limiting your potential profits. This, of course, leaves us with the billion-dollar question that every PlayStation owner is now asking. What does this mean for the future? Will the next God of War, the next Spider-Man, the next blockbuster from Naughty Dog launch simultaneously on PlayStation and Xbox? Or will Sony maintain a timed exclusivity window, perhaps 6 months, a year, or even 2 years, to ensure that PlayStation remains the premium, premier place to play? The answer to that question will determine the very value of owning a PlayStation console in the years to come. This all leads us to the final dramatic crossroads, the fate of the PlayStation 7. The future of PlayStation hardware beyond the PS6 now seems to rest entirely on the outcome of a cold, hard financial calculation. In the coming years, Sony's accountants will be looking at 2 columns on a spreadsheet. In one column, they'll have the immense profits generated by selling their software across every available platform, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and maybe even Nintendo's next console. In the other column, they'll have the staggering, multi-billion-dollar cost of designing, developing, manufacturing, and marketing an entirely new piece of hardware, the PlayStation 7. If the money from software sales vastly outweighs the potential profit from selling a new box, the decision becomes a simple matter of business. The PlayStation 7 will be canceled before it's ever truly conceived. Perhaps, in this future, Sony might channel its hardware expertise into smaller, niche devices. Capitalizing on the wild success of the Nintendo Switch, maybe they finally give fans the PlayStation Vita 2 they have been dreaming of for years, a powerful handheld that complements their software-first strategy. But a full-blown home console would be off the table. We are looking at 2 possible timelines for the future of gaming. In one, the multi-platform strategy is a healthy but not overwhelming success. Sony continues to make consoles as the flagship, premium experience, while porting games later to squeeze out extra revenue. In this world, the PlayStation 7 happens. But there is another, very real future. A future where games like Helldivers 2 and God of War on Xbox and PC are so ludicrously profitable that the business case for making a PlayStation 7 completely evaporates. In that world, Sony follows the path of another fallen hardware giant, Sega. After the legendary Dreamcast, Sega stopped making consoles and became a beloved third-party software publisher. The PlayStation 6 would become Sony's Dreamcast, a brilliant final machine loved by fans, but the last of its lineage. The PlayStation brand as we know it would cease to exist, replaced by a Sony that is simply a game developer for other companies' machines. The console wars would end not with a bang, but with a handshake and a quarterly earnings report. The PlayStation 6 is coming, but for the first time ever, its launch will be tinged with the bittersweet possibility of it being a final farewell. What do you think this means for the future? Is this a brilliant evolution for Sony to dominate the dawning age of software? Or is it the tragic beginning of the end for the PlayStation brand we all know and love? Let us know your predictions in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our follow-up analysis when those first sales numbers for Helldivers 2 on Xbox finally drop. You will not want to